prayer is not begging. Prayer is petition. Begging is what servants do when they do not know the heart of the ruler, but petition is what citizens bring before a king whose law already speaks. Write that down. If you begin prayer as a beggar, you will pray from fear. If you begin prayer as a citizen, you will pray from covenant. That is why many people pray long and receive little, because they confuse noise with access, emotion with authority, and panic with faith. Psalm 5 is not just a sweet morning devotion. It is David entering the court of heaven before he enters the conflicts of earth. He says, "Give ear to my words, O Lord. Consider my meditation. Hearken unto the voice of my cry, my King and my God." Notice that. He does not begin with the enemy. He does not begin with pressure. He does not begin with what people said, what people did, what he is afraid of, or what he needs before noon. He begins with government. He appears before the one who has jurisdiction. This is where morning prayer must be corrected. Many people begin the day reacting. They wake up and check the phone before they check the throne. They let messages, bills, appointments, memories, accusations, and anxieties become the first government of the day. And then they wonder why their spirit is confused by breakfast. Listen carefully. Whatever you report to first can begin to rule your emotional climate. David says, "Before I answer the world, I will appear before my king." He says, "My King and my God." Not just my comfort, not just my religious feeling, not just the one I run to when everything breaks down. My King. That means sovereign authority. That means law. That means order. That means government. That means the day does not belong to confusion. It belongs to the king. Are you with me? You cannot manage your day properly until you locate the authority over your day. Now, I am not saying emotions are not present in prayer. David says, "Consider my meditation." He says, "The voice of my cry." So there are words, there are thoughts, and there are cries. But the cry is not the foundation of the case. The emotion is not the evidence that guarantees the answer. You can cry and still be disorderly. You can weep and still not petition. You can talk for 1 hour and never present one lawful request. Prayer is not God being impressed by volume. Prayer is the citizen bringing the matter under the authority of the king. That is why this psalm is so powerful. David is teaching us how to start the morning with alignment. He brings his words, he brings his meditation, he brings his cry, then he brings his expectation. He brings his enemies into the courtroom, but he does not let his enemies define the courtroom. He brings his need for direction. He brings righteousness. He brings trust. He brings joy. And by the end of the psalm, he stands under favor like a shield. So stay with this teaching, because we are going to take Psalm 5 out of religious habit and restore it to kingdom procedure. We are going to learn how to present the day before God, not as frightened survivors, but as citizens who understand access, law, righteousness, defense, and favor. And if you desire more scripture-forward kingdom teaching that restores prayer to its original purpose, then like this, subscribe and keep learning, because ignorance of procedure can make even sincere people ineffective. The day should not begin with reaction. The day should begin with lawful appearance before the king. Now watch the order, because order is the secret. David says, "My King and my God," before he ever explains the full weight of what is troubling him. That means Psalm 5 is not first about trouble, it is first about authority. Write that down. The first issue in prayer is not the size of your problem. The first issue in prayer is the authority of the one to whom you are speaking. Most people rush into prayer describing the crisis. "Lord, they said this. Lord, I feel this. Lord, I need this. Lord, fix this." And God is merciful, yes, but you must understand kingdom procedure. In a kingdom, you do not begin by magnifying the rebellion. You begin by recognizing the throne. David does not give his enemies the first title in the morning. He does not give fear the first title. He does not give lack the first title. He says, "My King." In other words, before I tell you what is against me, I am declaring who is over me. This is why you cannot interpret prayer through religion. Religion turns prayer into performance. Religion says if you cry louder, God will hear you. If you pray longer, God will be impressed. If you use the right tone, the right phrases, the right religious face, maybe heaven will move. That is not kingdom. That is uncertainty, dressed up in church language. Kingdom petition does not begin with performance. It begins with recognition. Who are you addressing? What authority does he have? What law governs this request? What covenant gives you access? Are you with me? When David says, my king, he is not using poetry only. He is using government language. A king is not a decoration. In a kingdom, the king is not a symbol on a wall. The king is the source of law. The king is the source of protection. The king is the source of judgment. The king is the source of favor. The king is the center of national order. In a democracy, you may separate powers and argue departments. But in a kingdom, the king embodies the government. So when David calls God my king, he is saying the one I am speaking to has legal authority over this day. That changes prayer completely. You are not throwing words into the air. You are not hoping some spiritual sound reaches somewhere beyond the clouds. You are addressing the throne that governs the earth. The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. That means your morning is not outside his jurisdiction. Your workplace is not outside his jurisdiction. Your family is not outside his jurisdiction. Your enemies are not outside his jurisdiction. Your mind is not outside his jurisdiction. Your schedule, your decisions, your steps, your conversations, your battles, all of it must come under the king. Now, let me give you the legal picture. In a courtroom, before a case can move forward, the court must have jurisdiction. If the court has no jurisdiction, the judge may be sincere, the lawyer may be emotional, the documents may be thick, everybody may be dressed properly, but the case cannot proceed. Why? Wrong jurisdiction. The court must have authority over the matter. So David begins by establishing jurisdiction. My king. He gives God the legal right to rule the morning. He gives God the right to judge the matter. He gives God the right to order his steps. He gives God the right to silence what is false and approve what is righteous. That is why some people pray and still stay anxious. They presented a complaint, but they never surrendered jurisdiction. They told God about the problem, but they still allowed fear to govern the mind. They described the pressure, but they still let the opinions of people become the ruling authority. Write this down. If God is not king over the morning, anxiety will try to be king before noon. Say it again. If God is not king over the morning, anxiety will try to be king before noon. You cannot have two kings ruling the same territory. Either the king governs your inner life, or worry will attempt a coup. Either the word of the king becomes law in your spirit, or every voice around you will try to legislate your emotions. This is why David does not just say, oh God. He says, my king and my God. Relationship and authority. Worship and government. Devotion and law. He knows God is not only near enough to hear, he is high enough to rule. So when you wake up in the morning, do not begin by crowning your problem. Do not enthrone the email. Do not enthrone the bill. Do not enthrone the diagnosis. Do not enthrone the accusation. Do not enthrone the memory of yesterday. Bring the day before the king. Say, you are my king before this day has a chance to confuse me. You are my king before people speak over me. You are my king before my feelings interpret my future. You are my king before my enemies present their case. This is not denial. This is order. David is not pretending there is no trouble. He is putting trouble in its proper place. Trouble may be present, but trouble is not sovereign. Pressure may be loud, but pressure is not king. Fear may make an argument, but fear does not sit on the throne. The throne belongs to God. Once the king is identified, then the petition can be presented. Now David can bring the contents of the case, and notice what he brings next. He presents three forms of evidence before the king. His words, his meditation, and his cry. He says, give ear to my words, O Lord. Now notice that carefully. He does not say, first, give ear to my feelings. He says, my words. That means David is not merely carrying an emotion. He is forming a presentation. Write that down. Prayer begins when the heart starts forming what heaven can lawfully hear. Words matter in the kingdom. Why? Because words are not just sounds. Words carry petitions. Words carry agreements. Words carry confessions. Words carry accusations. Words carry decrees. Words carry covenants. You can use your mouth to agree with the king, or you can use your mouth to authorize fear. Are you with me? The same mouth that can say, the Lord is my shepherd, can also say, I am finished. The same tongue that can present a petition can also sign an agreement with defeat. So David says, give ear to my words. In other words, I am bringing the language of my life under your hearing. I am not going to let my mouth run wild before the day begins. I am not going to let yesterday teach my tongue how to speak today. I am not going to let my enemy write my vocabulary. I am bringing my words into the court of the king. Then he says, consider my meditation. Now this is powerful, because David does not hide the inner life. He brings not only what he says, he brings what he has been thinking. Meditation means the quiet conversation inside you. It is the muttering of the soul. It is what you rehearse when no one is listening. And if meditation is not governed, it becomes illegal imagination. You begin to imagine failure, rehearse rejection, build arguments, fear outcomes, and create pictures God never authorized. Some people do not lose the day in public. They lose it in private before they ever leave the bed. Their mouth says, Lord, help me. But their meditation says, nothing will change. Their mouth says, God is good. But their meditation says, I am alone. Their mouth says, I trust you. But their inner court has already accepted fear as evidence. David says, no. Consider my meditation. Search the hidden paperwork. Examine the private documents. Bring my thoughts under your government. Then he says, hearken unto the voice of my cry. Now do not misunderstand this. The cry is real. David is not cold. He is not mechanical. He is not pretending that pressure does not hurt. There is a cry in him. But the cry is inside procedure. That is the difference between kingdom prayer and religious panic. Kingdom prayer does not deny urgency. It submits urgency to order. You can cry before the king, but do not let the cry become the king. You can bring emotion into prayer, but do not let emotion become the law of the prayer. David's cry has a voice, but that voice is presented after his words of meditation are brought before God. In other words, even my pain must stand in line before the throne. Even my urgency must be governed. Even my tears must come under the authority of the king. That is why you must be careful what you say in the morning. Do not wake up and say, I am defeated. That is not a petition. That is an agreement. Do not say, nothing works for me. That is not humility. That is testimony for another government. Do not say, I am alone. The king said, I will never leave thee nor forsake thee. Do not say, this day will destroy me. The Constitution says, this is the day which the Lord hath made. Come on, talk to me. You cannot ask the king to govern your day while your mouth is filing documents against his word. This is why you prepare your morning words from Scripture before the day supplies fear-based words. If you do not give your heart lawful language early, your circumstances will provide illegal language quickly. The heart is a powerful secretary. It will draft documents all night if you let it. It will prepare accusations, rehearse disappointments, organize anxieties, and submit them before breakfast. So when you wake up, you must cancel the unauthorized paperwork and present the Constitution of the King. You say, Lord, give ear to my words. Let my mouth agree with your law today. Consider my meditation. Let my thoughts be judged by your truth today. Hearken unto the voice of my cry. Let my urgency be submitted to your order today. That is morning prayer. It is not religious noise. It is the government of the king taking authority over words, thoughts, and cries. And now David reveals the timing of this procedure. He does not wait until the day has already trained his tongue. He does not wait until fear has already occupied the mind. He says, my voice shalt thou hear in the morning. Why morning? Because the first voice often governs the whole day. David says, my voice shalt thou hear in the morning, O Lord. In the morning will I direct my prayer unto thee, and will look up. Now notice the discipline in that verse. He does not say, in the morning I will see how I feel. He does not say, in the morning I will let the news decide my mood. He does not say, in the morning I will complain until I feel better. He says, my voice shalt thou hear. In other words, the first official hearing of this day belongs to the king. Write this down. Morning prayer is not accidental speech. Morning prayer is scheduled government business. David is saying, before this day hears from my fear, before people hear from my frustration, before my enemies hear from my mouth, before my own emotions conduct a meeting without authorization, you will hear my voice. That is order. That is strategy. That is a citizen reporting to headquarters before entering the field. Then he says, I will direct my prayer unto thee. That word direct means I will arrange it. I will set it in order. I will lay it out properly. Like a priest arranging the sacrifice on the altar. Like a servant setting the table before the king. Like an attorney preparing evidence before the judge. Come on, talk to me. David is not throwing words into heaven and hoping one of them lands correctly. He is arranging the case. This is where religion has damaged many sincere people. We were taught that prayer is just talking to God. And yes, relationship includes talking. But kingdom petition is more than random talking. If prayer were only random talking, David would not say, I will direct. Direction means intention. Direction means structure. Direction means I know where this is going. Direction means my words are not wandering all over the room. Direction means my heart may be heavy, but my petition will be ordered. Nobody walks into a court with 20 pages upside down, crying, waving papers, interrupting the judge, accusing everybody, and then expects the court to understand the case. The judge may feel compassion for you, but compassion does not replace order. Sincerity is not a substitute for procedure. You may be hurting, but you still have to present the matter. You may be under pressure, but you still have to identify the issue. You may be right, but if you present the case wrongly, you frustrate the process. Are you listening to me? That is why some people pray sincerely, but vaguely. Lord, bless me. What does that mean? Lord, fix it. Fix what? Lord, help me. Help you obey, help you forgive, help you decide, help you resist temptation, help you speak wisely, help you endure. You must learn to direct the prayer. The king is not confused, but you may be. Prayer does not organize God. Prayer organizes you before God. So in the morning, you take Psalm 5 and you build your petition. First, acknowledge the king and my God. That settles jurisdiction. Second, submit your words. Give ear to my words. That brings your mouth under authority. Third, expose your meditation. Consider my meditation. That opens the secret chamber of the mind to divine examination. Fourth, present your need and your cry. Hearken unto the voice of my cry. That brings urgency into order. Fifth, request righteous direction. Lead me, O Lord, in thy righteousness. That means do not just change things around me. Govern the path under my feet. 6, identify opposition. David talks about enemies, falsehood, deceit, and flattery. He does not pretend evil is not operating. He names it in the presence of the king. 7, choose trust. Let all those that put their trust in thee rejoice. And 8, receive favor. For thou, Lord, wilt bless the righteous. With favor wilt thou compass him as with a shield. That is a morning petition. That is not religious noise. That is not spiritual panic. That is a citizen arranging the day under the government of the king. You do not have to pray for 3 hours to be effective if you know how to direct the case. You can pray with precision. You can say, Lord, here is my mouth. Here is my mind. Here is my cry. Here is my need. Here is the opposition. Here is the path I must walk. Here is my trust. And here is your promise of favor. Case presented. And David says he does it in the morning. Why? Because morning is strategic. The day has not yet trained your mind to panic. The meeting has not yet insulted you. The traffic has not yet tested you. The bill has not yet threatened you. The criticism has not yet entered your ears. The temptation has not yet negotiated with your appetite. The conflict has not yet demanded your reaction. So David says, before all of that gets a vote, I will stand before the king. You must stop giving the day permission to shape you before the king directs you. Many people do not lose because the devil is so powerful. They lose because the day was allowed to speak first. By the time they pray, their mind is already crowded. Their spirit is already agitated. Their words are already contaminated. Their emotions have already signed agreements. David says, no, my voice will be heard in the morning. Then he adds, and will look up. That is expectation. He does not present the petition and walk away hopeless. He does not pray like a victim who expects nothing. He directs the prayer, then he watches. He looks up. In other words, I have placed the matter before the king. Now I expect government response. I expect direction. I expect correction. I expect defense. I expect wisdom. I expect favor. Prayer without expectation is unfinished petition. So when you rise in the morning, do not just speak and rush away. Present the case, then look up. Watch for instruction. Watch for restraint. Watch for open doors. Watch for warnings. Watch for peace. Watch for the king's answer in the movement of the day. But now you must understand something very important. If petition requires order, it also requires qualification. You cannot ask the king to support what his righteousness condemns. So David immediately deals with wickedness, foolishness, evil, and truth, because favor is not God assisting rebellion. Favor is the king backing what is aligned with his law. Now David says, for thou art not a God that hath pleasure in wickedness, neither shall evil dwell with thee. Watch this carefully. This is not David changing the subject. This is not a little religious statement he puts in the middle of his prayer because he ran out of requests. No, this is part of the petition. This is a qualification statement. David is saying, before I ask you to bless me, I understand what your court will not tolerate. Write that down. The king's court has standards. You cannot come before a righteous king and ask him to sponsor unrighteousness. You cannot ask God to defend what God condemns. You cannot ask the government of heaven to finance rebellion against the government of heaven. That is why petition is not magic. Prayer is not a spiritual trick where you say the right words and force God to help you do the wrong thing. Prayer is legal alignment with the nature, will, and law of the king. David says God takes no pleasure in wickedness. In other words, wickedness has no audience in this court. Evil cannot dwell with him. The foolish cannot stand in his sight. The deceitful man is exposed. The bloody man is rejected. Now, that sounds strong because we have been trained by religion to think favor means God ignoring everything. But favor is not God closing his eyes. Favor is God placing his support around what agrees with his righteousness. Are you with me? Righteousness is not religious arrogance. Righteousness is not walking around like you are better than everybody else. Righteousness means alignment. It means you are standing in the position the king can legally support. If you stand outside the law of the kingdom and then demand kingdom results, you are confused. You may be emotional, you may be loud, you may be sincere, but sincerity does not legalize rebellion. This is why grace has been misunderstood. Grace is not permission to live lawless and still demand lawful benefits. Grace does not make lawlessness powerful. Grace restores the citizen to lawful standing. Come on, get this. Grace does not say, go ahead and violate the king's nature. The king will bless it anyway. No. Grace says you were out of alignment, but mercy has brought you back so you can stand rightly before the king again. Grace restores access. Grace restores position. Grace restores fellowship. Grace teaches us to deny ungodliness, not decorate it with religious language. So when you wake up in the morning, before you start saying, Lord, bless my business, bless my plans, bless my relationships, bless my decisions, you must allow the king to inspect the case. What motives are in this petition? What resentment is hiding behind this request? What habit are you protecting while asking God for promotion? What secret agreement are you keeping with bitterness, lust, dishonesty, pride, jealousy, or fear? Do not rush past this. Many petitions are sabotaged before they are spoken because the heart is asking for favor while holding on to rebellion. You cannot ask God to bless a day you have already dedicated to deceit. You cannot ask God to guide your mouth while planning to lie. You cannot ask God to prosper your work while refusing integrity. You cannot ask God to give peace in a relationship while you are determined not to forgive. You cannot ask God to open doors while your intention is selfish ambition. This is not condemnation. This is procedure. The court is righteous. That is why morning prayer must include inspection. Search me, O God. Examine the documents. Examine the motives. Examine the agreements. Examine the appetite. Examine the resentment I dressed up as discernment. Examine the pride I call excellence. Examine the fear I call wisdom. Examine the compromise I call survival. Lord, do not just bless what I planned. Judge what I planned. Correct what I planned. Purify what I planned, so that what remains can stand before you. Some of you are asking God to bless something He is trying to cleanse. You are asking Him to promote something He is trying to correct. You are asking Him to defend an attitude He is trying to crucify. And because the answer has not come, you think God did not hear you. No, maybe He heard you clearly, and because He loves you, He refused to endorse what would destroy you. So here is the morning step. Forgive before you petition. Repent before you request. Correct your intention before you ask for opportunity. Refuse deceit before you ask for favor. Settle the matter of obedience before you ask for power. If you know you are wrong, do not build a prayer around your wrongness and ask God to sign it. Come back into alignment. Say, Lord, I release the offense. I repent of the compromise. I correct my motive. I renounce the lie. I refuse to let wickedness govern my words, my thoughts, my habits, or my plans today. That is not weakness, that is wisdom. You are not losing authority when you repent. You are restoring lawful standing. You are not delaying the petition when you forgive. You are clearing the obstruction. You are not becoming less bold when you submit to righteousness. You are becoming qualified to stand where favor can surround you. David understands this. He knows evil cannot dwell with God. He knows foolishness cannot stand in the court. He knows deceit cannot manipulate the king. But he also knows he is not approaching because he is flawless. That is the next key. He does not stand in arrogance. He stands by mercy. He does not come casually. He comes in reverence. He does not enter because he has never failed. He enters because covenant has given him access. But then David says, but as for me, now that is a separation statement. After he has talked about the wicked, after he has talked about deceit, after he has talked about what cannot stand in the court of the king, he says, but as for me, I will come into thy house in the multitude of thy mercy. In other words, I am not coming because I am better than everyone else. I am not coming because my record is clean by itself. I am not coming because I have earned the palace. I am coming because mercy opened the door. Write that down. Access is by mercy, not ego. Some people think righteousness means arrogance. No, righteousness means alignment. And mercy is what restores you to that alignment when you have failed. David does not say, as for me, I will come because I am David. He does not say, I killed Goliath, so let me in. He does not say, I am the king of Israel, so I have privileges. No, no, no. He says, I will come in the multitude of thy mercy. That means the greatest man in the nation still knows he needs mercy to enter the presence of the greater king. This is where religion creates two errors. The first error is guilt without covenant. Some people stay outside because they feel too dirty, too ashamed, too unworthy, too inconsistent. They say, I cannot pray today. I failed yesterday. Who told you that? Mercy is not for people who never needed it. Mercy is the legal provision of the king for those who must be restored. If you repent, if you return, if you come under his government, mercy gives you access. Do not let guilt keep you outside the house when the king has provided mercy as the doorway. But the second error is confidence without reverence. That one is dangerous. Some people hear mercy and become casual. They hear grace and become careless. They hear access and think they can rush into the throne room with dirty motives, loud demands, and no submission. That is not kingdom, that is presumption. David says, I will come into thy house in the multitude of thy mercy. But then he says, and in thy fear will I worship toward thy holy temple. Mercy brings him in, but reverence governs how he stands. Are you getting this? Mercy does not make the throne common. Mercy does not reduce the king to your assistant. Mercy does not turn prayer into a place where you give God instructions while refusing his authority. You may be a son, yes. You may be a citizen, yes. You may have rights, yes. You may have covenant access, yes. But you are still entering the palace. You are still standing before the throne. You are still speaking to the king whose nature defines righteousness. In a palace, access does not cancel protocol. A child of the king may enter where strangers cannot enter, but that child still knows the room is royal. A citizen may petition the government, but that citizen still respects the court. A son may speak boldly to his father, but if his father is also king, boldness must be clothed with honor. Come on, talk to me. Kingdom citizens are bold, but they are not dishonoring. They are confident, but they are not familiar in a cheap way. They are close, but they are not careless. That is why David holds mercy and fear together. The fear of the Lord is not terror that runs from God. It is reverence that refuses to treat him as common. It is the attitude that says, I am allowed to enter, but I will not forget where I'm standing. It says, I have access, but I will not abuse access. It says, I can speak, but I will not speak as though I am the king. This is important because confidence without reverence becomes presumption, and reverence without mercy becomes distance. Psalm 5 rejects both. So the morning petitioner must learn this balance. You do not begin the day hiding from God because yesterday exposed your weakness. Come by mercy. But you also do not begin the day barking demands at heaven while your heart refuses correction. Stand in reverence. You say, Lord, I enter by mercy. I stand in reverence. And I ask according to your nature. That is the posture. That is the spirit of lawful prayer. That is how a citizen comes before the king. And when you pray that way, your prayer changes. You stop performing. You stop pretending. You stop accusing God. You stop negotiating with rebellion. You come clean. You say, Father, I do not enter because I am flawless. I enter because you are merciful. I do not stand because I am proud. I stand because you have given covenant access. I do not ask you to follow my will. I ask you to bring my will under your righteousness. That kind of morning prayer cleanses the heart before it confronts the day. It removes shame, but it also removes arrogance. It gives you confidence, but it also gives you humility. It gives you access, but it also gives you order. And now, once David has established access, once he has entered by mercy and bowed in reverence, he asks for the most practical thing any person needs before the day begins. He asks for direction. He says, lead me, O Lord, in thy righteousness because of mine enemies. Make thy way straight before my face. Now watch the order. He does not say destroy my enemies first. He does not say remove every problem first. He does not say change everybody around me first. He says lead me. That means David understands that the first answer he needs is not escape. The first answer he needs is direction. Write that down. Direction is the first form of favor. Many people think favor means God changes the circumstance immediately. Sometimes he does. But many times, the first evidence that the king has heard you is not that the enemy disappeared. It is that the path became clear. You still have the meeting, but now you know what to say. You still have the pressure, but now you know what not to do. You still have the opposition, but now your feet are not confused. That is favor. David says, lead me in thy righteousness because of mine enemies. In other words, the presence of enemies makes direction more necessary, not less necessary. When enemies are around you, you cannot afford crooked steps. When pressure is around you, you cannot afford foolish decisions. When people are watching for your mistake, you cannot afford to let anger drive the car. Come on, are you with me? The enemy may not be able to destroy you directly, so he tries to pull you out of righteousness. If he can get you to respond wrongly, speak wrongly, decide wrongly, and move wrongly, then he does not need to defeat you. He will let your own crookedness damage your case. That is why David does not just ask for deliverance, he asks for a straight way. Make thy way straight before my face. Not my way, thy way. That is important. Some people want God to straighten their own plan. They say, Lord, bless this path, but they never ask whether the path belongs to him. David says, make thy way straight. Show me the road that agrees with your nature. Show me the decision that agrees with your law. Show me the response that agrees with your righteousness. Do not just help me win, help me walk right. Enemies in this psalm are not only people with swords. They include deceptive voices. They include flattering mouths. They include corrupt counsel. They include systems of wickedness. They include circumstances designed to make David crooked. See, an enemy is anything that pressures you to leave the government of God. It may be a person, it may be a conversation, it may be an opportunity that looks profitable but requires compromise. It may be fear, speaking like wisdom. It may be offense, speaking like discernment. It may be ambition, speaking like destiny. You better learn to test voices in the morning before you obey them in the afternoon. This is why morning prayer is so practical. You are not just saying, Lord, give me a good day. That is too vague. You are saying, Lord, lead me in righteousness. Give me clarity where confusion is trying to govern. Give me restraint where emotion is trying to speak. Give me wisdom where pressure is demanding speed. Give me timing where impatience is trying to rush me. Give me courage where fear is trying to shrink me. Give me moral precision where compromise is trying to make crookedness look normal. The king's answer may be a straight path through the same valley. We do not like that sometimes. We want him to cancel the valley, remove the people, erase the pressure, silence the critics, and make everybody apologize before lunch. But the king is more committed to forming righteous citizens than entertaining religious customers. Sometimes he says, I will not remove the situation yet, but I will lead you through it straight. I will not let it bend your character. I will not let it twist your tongue. I will not let it corrupt your judgment. I will not let it turn you into what attacked you. That is powerful, because a person with no direction becomes easy to manipulate. If you do not know where you are going, every voice can become a steering wheel. Someone's insult can steer you. Someone's approval can steer you. A bill can steer you. A fear can steer you. A desire can steer you. A memory can steer you. That is not leadership. That is slavery to circumstances. Leaders do not let every voice become government. Citizens of the kingdom receive direction from the king, and then they walk through the day with internal law. When the king makes the way straight, confusion loses authority. You may still have questions, but confusion is no longer ruling. You may still have pressure, but pressure is no longer king. You may still have enemies, but enemies no longer define your movement. That is why righteousness is connected to guidance. God does not merely show you a route, he shows you the right route. He does not merely give you options, he gives you alignment. And once you see the straight path, you must walk it. Do not ask for direction and then negotiate with disobedience. Do not say, Lord, lead me, and then follow the loudest appetite. If he makes the way straight, honor the instruction. So in the morning you pray like this: Father, lead me in righteousness today. Do not let pressure make me crooked. Do not let offense bend my character. And do not let fear choose my steps. Say it until your spirit hears it. Say it before the phone begins talking. Say it before the office begins demanding. Say it before your emotions begin campaigning. Lead me in thy righteousness. Make thy way straight before my face. And after David asks for the straight path, he begins to identify the speech and the systems of the wicked. Because once the king gives direction, you must still discern the voices around you. Not every voice in the day deserves agreement. David says, for there is no faithfulness in their mouth. Their inward part is very wickedness. Their throat is an open sepulchre. They flatter with their tongue. Now notice where the battle is. It is in the mouth. It is in speech. It is in counsel. It is in interpretation. David is not only dealing with swords and spears, he is dealing with voices, unfaithful mouths, wicked inward parts, open graves, flattering tongues. In other words, speech can become a weapon, and if you do not discern it, speech can become government. Write that down. Every day has voices trying to write the terms of your day. Accusation wants to tell you who you are. Fear wants to tell you what is possible. Cynicism wants to tell you nothing will change. Offense wants to tell you how to respond. Compromise wants to tell you righteousness is too expensive. Flattery wants to tell you you are too important to be corrected. Come on, are you listening? These are not just sounds. They are counsels. They are arguments. They are proposals trying to enter your inner court and pass legislation. That is why a kingdom citizen cannot live by every voice. You cannot let every message become a mandate. You cannot let every criticism become identity. You cannot let every compliment become permission. You cannot let every fear become prophecy. You cannot let every angry thought become law. If the king has already given direction, then every other voice must be tested by the government of his righteousness. David brings those voices before God. He does not carry them privately all day, turning them over in his mind, rehearsing them, arguing with them, letting them poison his spirit. He says, Lord, look at this. Their mouth is unreliable. Their inward part is destructive. Their throat is an open grave. Their tongue flatters. Then he says, let them fall by their own counsels. In other words, King, you judge what I cannot govern with emotion. You handle the deception. You expose the counsel. You let falsehood collapse under its own weight. Discernment is not paranoia. Some people think being discerning means being suspicious of everybody. No, that is fear dressed in religious clothes. Discernment is refusing illegal counsel. It is the ability to say, this voice may be loud, but it has no authority. This opportunity may be attractive, but it is not righteous. This compliment may feel good, but it is trying to move me off purpose. This criticism may hurt, but I will not let pain become my government. And let me tell you something. Flattery can be as dangerous as attack. Attack tries to push you out of righteousness through pain. Flattery tries to pull you out of righteousness through pleasure. One says, you are nothing. The other says, you are everything. Both can be lies. Both can move you away from obedience. Both can make you forget the king. So do not only ask God to protect you from enemies who hate you. Ask him to protect you from voices that admire you for the wrong reason. Before you answer the message, ask the king, what spirit is behind this voice? Before you enter the meeting, ask the king, what counsel must I refuse? Before you respond to criticism, ask the king, what is correction and what is accusation? Before you make the decision, ask the king, is this wisdom or fear, favor or flattery, opportunity or compromise? Do not let the day interpret itself. Bring the voices into court. But David does not end with enemies. That is important. The petition does not end in fear. He moves from deceptive voices into trust, joy, covering, and favor. Because once the king has heard the case, you do not have to live governed by the mouths of men. Now David says, but let all those that put their trust in thee rejoice. Watch the shift. He has brought the mouths, the flattery, the deceit, the counsel, the opposition into the court of the king. He has presented the evidence. He has asked for judgment. But now he refuses to let the complaint become his residence. He moves from legal complaint to covenant confidence. In other words, once the matter is placed before the king, the citizen does not keep living like the case was never heard. Write that down. Joy is the response of a citizen who trusts the government of the king. Joy is not denial. Joy is not pretending there is no conflict. Joy is not acting like nobody lied, nobody attacked, nobody opposed you, nobody tried to trap you. No, David already named the conflict. He already described the mouths. He already exposed the wicked counsel. So joy in the kingdom is not blindness. Joy is confidence. It says, I see the battle, but I also know where I filed the case. He says, let them ever shout for joy because thou defendest them. There is the reason. Not because the enemies disappeared. Not because every problem was solved before breakfast. Not because everybody suddenly liked him. He says, they rejoice because thou defendest them. That is covering language. That means the king has assumed responsibility for protection. The citizen is not uncovered. The citizen is not abandoned. The citizen is not standing alone in the street arguing with every voice that rises against him. The king defends him. Are you with me? Some of you lose your joy after prayer because you pray. Then you pick the case back up. You say, Lord, I give this to you. And then you spend the whole day rehearsing it, defending yourself, explaining yourself, answering imaginary conversations, preparing arguments, worrying about outcomes. That is not trust. That is religious filing with practical unbelief. Trust means you stop carrying the case as though the king refused to hear it. If you went to court and submitted your matter to the judge, you do not leave the courtroom acting like you are still the judge, the lawyer, the witness, the security officer, and the victim all by yourself. That is confusion. You presented the case. Now let the authority of the court work in prayer. You brought the petition. You brought the evidence. You brought the voices. You asked for direction. You came by mercy. You stood in reverence. Now walk out under covering. This is why morning prayer must end differently from how it began. You may begin with pressure, but you should not end with panic. You may begin with complaint, but you should not end with accusation governing your spirit. You may begin by naming enemies, but you should end by trusting the defender. Before the phone rings, before the meeting starts, before the opinion of people begins to move around you, settle this. I am defended by the king. I want you to write this, even put it in the comments as your confession. Today I trust the king, and I will not let fear govern my morning. Say it like a citizen. Say it like someone whose case has been heard. Or write the truth from Psalm 5 that you are choosing to believe and live out today. Not just read, live. Not just quote, obey. The king hears me. The king leads me. The king defends me. The king covers me. Come on, make your mouth agree with the government you belong to. And once David establishes that joy belongs to the trusting citizen, he comes to the final verse. And the final verse shows us the result of a properly presented morning petition. The king does not merely hear. The king blesses. The king surrounds. Favor becomes a shield around the righteous life. For David says, for thou, Lord, wilt bless the righteous. With favor wilt thou compass him as with a shield. Now that is not a religious declaration at the end of the psalm. That is the verdict. After the case has been presented, after the heart has been examined, after the king has been acknowledged, after the wicked have been exposed, after mercy has granted access, after righteousness has given direction, after trust has released joy, David says, now I know the result. The Lord will bless the righteous, and favor will surround him like a shield. Write this down. Favor is not favoritism. Favoritism is when someone supports you because of personal preference while ignoring righteousness. Favor in the kingdom is the king's support surrounding the life that is aligned with his righteousness. God is not unjust. God does not bless rebellion and call it favor. God does not finance disobedience and call it grace. God does not protect crookedness and call it mercy. No, favor belongs to the righteous, and righteousness means the life is positioned under the government of the king. This is where many people have reduced favor to shallow things. They think favor means money only. They think favor means a promotion only. They think favor means people clapping for you, doors opening for you, somebody calling your name, somebody noticing your gift. That may be included sometimes, but that is not the whole meaning. In Psalm 5, favor is connected to prayer, alignment, trust, direction, defense, and covering. Favor is not just getting something you wanted. Favor is being surrounded by the king while you obey him. David says favor will compass him as with a shield. That word compass means it goes around, it surrounds, it encircles. So favor is not just in front of you opening a door. Favor is behind you preserving what you did not see. Favor is beside you restraining what tried to reach you. Favor is over you covering your mind. Favor is under you keeping your feet from slipping. Come on, are you getting this? A shield is not applause. A shield is defense. A shield does not make noise for your ego. A shield absorbs what was meant to injure you. Sometimes favor is opportunity, but sometimes favor is protection from the wrong opportunity. Sometimes favor is access, but sometimes favor is the king keeping you out of a room your flesh wanted to enter. Sometimes favor is timing. Sometimes favor is delay. Sometimes favor is a yes. Sometimes favor is a no. That preserved your life. Sometimes favor is visible promotion. And sometimes favor is invisible preservation. You better learn to thank God not only for what He gave you, but for what He blocked, what He delayed, what He exposed, and what He never allowed to touch you. That is why you cannot chase favor first. Religious people chase blessings without alignment. They want the shield while walking in rebellion. They want covering while refusing correction. They want doors while ignoring direction. They want defense while keeping wicked counsel in their hearts. That is not kingdom. The order of Psalm 5 is clear. First give ear to my words, then consider my meditation, then hearken unto my cry. Then, my King and my God, then in the morning I will direct my prayer and look up. Then wickedness is rejected. Then mercy gives access. Then reverence governs attitude. Then righteousness gives direction. Then deceptive voices are judged. Then trust produces joy. Then favor surrounds. Do you see the procedure? The shield comes at the end of alignment. Favor is not a magic word you shout over a crooked life. Favor is the atmosphere around obedience. It is what surrounds the citizen who has presented himself before the king correctly. And that should give you relief. Because you do not have to manipulate people for favor. You do not have to beg men for favor. You do not have to perform for favor. You do not have to panic for favor. Present yourself rightly before the king and let the king decide how to surround you. When you wake up in the morning, do not say first, Lord, give me favor, while your heart is still full of revenge, fear, pride, deception, and self-government. No. Say, Lord, hear my words. Examine my thoughts. Govern my cry. You are my king. I direct this prayer before you. I reject wickedness. I enter by mercy. I stand in reverence. Lead me in righteousness. Defend me as I trust you. Then favor becomes lawful. Favor becomes clean. Favor becomes the king's shield around a righteous life. And let me tell you something. When favor surrounds you like a shield, you can walk into the day differently. You are not uncovered. You are not abandoned. You are not trying to create your own protection out of anxiety. You are not trying to manufacture outcomes by manipulation. You are not walking around looking for someone to approve you. The king has blessed the righteous. The king has surrounded the citizen. The king has taken responsibility for the one who trusts his government. So tomorrow morning, do not begin by chasing the blessing. Begin by appearing before the king. Do not chase the shield. Come into alignment with the one who surrounds. Do not chase favor as a thing. Seek the government of the king. Because when your life is in order before him, favor becomes the environment you walk in. Now we are ready to turn this whole psalm into a practice. Not just something you admire. Not just something you quote. Not just an ancient prayer on a page. We are going to take Psalm 5 and make it a morning petition you can present before the king today. So tomorrow morning, before the day starts making demands, take Psalm 5 and turn it into your petition. Do not wait until pressure teaches you how to pray. Write it before the phone talks. Write it before fair talks. Write it before people talk. Write it before your emotions begin holding meetings without authorization. Come on, are you with me? Morning prayer is where you establish government before noise arrives. Use the pattern. Acknowledge the king. Submit your words. Surrender your meditations. Order your petition. Check your alignment. Enter by mercy. Ask for straight paths. Reject deceptive voices. Choose trust. Receive favor. That is not a poem only. That is procedure. David was not just being inspirational. He was showing you how a citizen appears before the king. Write this down. The day should not organize your prayer. Your prayer should organize your day. If you let trouble speak first, your prayer will become panic. If you let fear speak first, your prayer will become begging. If you let offense speak first, your prayer will become accusation. But when you come before the king first, your words come under authority. Your thoughts come under examination. Your plans come under righteousness. And your life comes under covering. So you can pray like this. My king and my God, hear my voice this morning. I present my thoughts, my responsibilities, my decisions, and my relationships before you. Lead me in righteousness. Make your way straight before my face. Defend me as I trust you, and surround me with favor as with a shield. That is simple, but it is loaded. You have acknowledged jurisdiction. You have submitted your inner life. You have presented the affairs of the day. You have asked for righteous direction. You have refused to walk crooked. You have trusted the defender. You have received favor as covering. That is kingdom prayer. That is not religious noise. That is a lawful morning petition. Now I want to challenge you. Do this for 7 mornings. Not as a ritual, not as a superstition, not because you think repeating words forces God to move. No. Do it as a kingdom discipline. Because discipline trains the heart. Discipline trains the mouth. Discipline trains the mind to approach God with order, reverence, and confidence. For 7 mornings, before the day becomes loud, stand before the King. Even if you only have 10 minutes, use them correctly. Say, Lord, hear my words. Then stop lying to yourself. Say, consider my meditation. Then let him govern your thoughts. Say, my King and my God. Then remove every false throne from your heart. Say, I will direct my prayer unto thee. Then arrange your case with expectation. Say, lead me in thy righteousness. Then refuse crooked counsel. Say, let all who trust in thee rejoice. Then stop carrying what you place before him. Say, with favor you surround the righteous as with a shield. Then walk into the day like a covered citizen. And let me tell you something. This will change how you move. You will not become perfect in 7 days, but you will become more ordered. You will start hearing your own words differently. You will start catching your meditations before they become decisions. You will start recognizing voices that used to govern you. You will start asking, is this righteous? Is this straight? Is this the King's way? That is growth. That is maturity. That is the kingdom forming government inside you. Psalm 5 is not locked in history. It is not trapped in David's generation. It is a living procedure for the citizen who knows the King still hears in the morning. The same God who heard David is still King. The same throne is still open by mercy. The same righteousness still leads. The same favor still surrounds. The question is not whether the King can hear. The question is whether you will appear correctly. So do not reduce this psalm to something you read when you are desperate. Make it the way you begin. Make it your morning court appearance. Make it your daily alignment. Before you fight the day, file the petition. Before you answer the voices, hear the King. Before you chase favor, come into righteousness. Before you ask for protection, come under government. And as you practice this, share the truth you are choosing to live today. Write it plainly. The King hears my morning petition. Or write, I will walk today under righteous favor. Let your mouth agree with your citizenship. And if these teachings are helping restore your kingdom identity and rebuild biblical prayer in your life, stay connected, because we are not learning religion. We are learning how citizens live before the King.